Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kevin Weitzel with Outhouse, and this is our Movers and Shakers series. And Movers and Shakers is basically where I kind of get enamored with people that have either the intestinal fortitude or sometimes the fear, sometimes just the willingness to leap in hopes that net will appear. I've always liked the story that's behind all that. And, we've had some other people on. Matter of fact, our last one was Ingrid Prince, now Ingrid Ricks, who's not only moved into the marriage, but then also moved and started her own company. So there you go. But yeah, the story behind that is what really kind of gets me. And I love to dive deeper. And speaking of diving deeper, let's go ahead and do that. I've got Cory Charles. He's the founder of Superhero Mindset. Good morning, Cory.
Good morning to you, sir. Listen, Kevin, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you. So I'm excited to chat and talk about moving and shaking.
That's it. All right. So you were pretty much going to be able to tick both boxes, but let's go ahead and start with your first job. So not your first adult job, but what was your absolute first, like the first thing that somebody paid you money to mow a lawn or to do something like that? What was your first job?
So I'll tell you, I was an early entrepreneur. My parents have always said, if you want something, you better go figure out how to make the money. So I had a little, not a paper route, but a paper sorting gig where we would construct the newspapers and put, this section goes with this section and the coupons go here and do that stuff. It was like an overnight job. I think it was illegal because it was a bunch of kids working till like 2:00 in the morning. I'm pretty sure it got shut down, but that was my first real gig. I might have been like 11 or 12 out there in the middle of the night sorting newspapers. So that was an interesting way to get into the professional world, I would say.
All right. So let's fast forward into your first adult job. What was that?
So first adult job. So I went to work at Winn-Dixie. I was bagging your groceries, helping old ladies out to their carts and doing all that fun stuff. That helped me get my first car. But my first real adult job is I got a job at CarMax, which is, at the time, and I think still is, was the largest used car store. And for me, it was just, I like being around cars. I'd done detailing in the past. I'd done some other miscellaneous jobs, but I really liked being around cars. I didn't know yet that I had a sales bug, but I was told by a friend that you could make a lot of money. And for me, being a super shy kid, deciding to get into sales was quite hilarious. My parents literally laughed when I told them I was going to work in sales, which kind of made me a little bit angry and made me really want to show them up. So I got into CarMax, and that was the beginning of my sales career. And I had no idea that 21 years later, it'd still be essentially a big part of what I do today.
What was your key takeaway from that first job? Not the paper sorting, but that CarMax job. What did you take away from that very first adult job?
Man, the biggest takeaway from CarMax, I was going to school at the same time, and I tell this story often that I failed speech class in college 3 times. I was so afraid to speak publicly and speak around people, and CarMax taught me that no matter what conversation you're having, you're just a human talking to another human. And going through those reps and talking to 10 people a day, sometimes 20 people on a Saturday, and forcing yourself to have these public conversations over and over again where there's 50 eyes on you at all times, it really broke me through that discomfort. Dragged me through the discomfort, I should say, but really led me to what I was going to do in the future, which was being around people, being on stages, talking to people. That was the training ground that I needed, was to just take a ton of reps and, as I say, a ton of no's to the face just to get really comfortable with it.
So I spent some time in the car world too. Did you have a go-to repertoire for when you were introduced or when you introduced yourself to a new buyer or a new couple that comes in to look at cars? Would you have a key line or a key spiel that you would give?
So I didn't have anything super tight, just because I was more worried not to poop my pants at the time, and I was sweating bullets, and I used to carry a little white rag to wipe my sweaty hands because I was so nervous. But I would identify anything that I could see, if it was a sports team or just a piece of jewelry or a pair of shoes, anything that I could read and recognize super quick before you walk through the door, and that was always my go-to. So being a New Yorker and a Giants fan, man, if I saw a Cowboys fan walking through the door, we were gonna banter, and I'm probably going to sell you something, which was always a fun thing to be a part of.
I gotcha. What about, did you have a key answer for when somebody just gave you the just looking? You
Yeah,
know,
I don't want to be one of those cliche guys and say, "Oh, I'm just selling," right? But I used to, especially in those days, I was so uncomfortable in the role. When someone would say they're just looking, I'd say, "Hey, no problem. My job's just to help point you in the right direction, so you don't waste any time, if that's okay." And it was a really soft way to approach the conversation. And most people would say, "Oh, that's okay," or they would just take pity on this kid that is clearly, nervous as hell, and they would just let me kind of follow them around like a puppy until I showed them a car.
I would start my day off as when I got to the dealership. This was back when I was on the motorcycle side, not the car side. And I would walk all the way back to the service lot and find the coolest, most kick-ass motorcycle they had back there. It was somebody said they were just looking. I'd be like, "Oh my God, I gotta show you this. Here, follow me." And I'd walk them through the
Smart.
entire dealership, all the way to the whole back lot. And be like, "Look at this bad boy right here. I mean, look at this thing. This thing has 128 horsepower. It's ridiculous. Look at all the chrome on it." And I'm like, "And by the way, what brought you by today?" And then I'd go into that. So
They're like, "Well, this is what brought
yeah.
me now."
It actually worked out really well. I mean, it turned out to be a winner, and as cheesy as it was, it worked out really well.
I
All
like
right,
that.
so what about so you're in the car industry? What made you leave the car industry, and then where did you head to?
Man, and I love the car industry, and that was my home for so long. The honest answer is it was 2008 going into 2009. We all know what was happening in that time. I felt personally that I had more to offer than chasing people on Saturday mornings that really did not want to buy in a tough economy. And it was a combination of things of just wanting to try something different and try something new, and also realizing that I was running up against a brick wall called, the financial crash of
Yeah.
'08. And it hit a lot of the market in 2008, but it kind of trickled into used cars into 2009. So we held off a little bit, but it came for us too. So really, it was just time to move on and try something different. And I took a swing, which is, you'll see, as a theme of my life. I take a lot of big swings, and some work, and so far most work out. Some don't, but that's okay.
And where did you go to? What was that next? What was the next role?
I went into, I call it marketing, right? So, but the reality is it was direct sales. So I had a sales team that sold door to door and business to business, which is, as you know, probably the toughest sales gig there is. I had a whole entire team that I trained and coached, and that's really where my heart was starting to lean, was into training and coaching. So I got to work with a great team. Here's the part that I don't talk about a lot, but I had to learn the ropes. So I was also going door to door, business to business, and really understanding what that's like. And you haven't had a no, like you've had a no where someone slams their door in your face. That's a heavy no, where it does feel personal. But I trained a team and I worked with them, and I got a chance to travel to great cities. I spent 2 years in Louisville, Kentucky, which is one of my favorite cities in the whole entire United States. So that was the shift. It was a really big shift, but it was such an essential shift for me to really grasp the training and coaching and developing part of what would eventually be absolutely what I do.
And the beauty of that is that you learn so much about the diversity of all the different types of people you'll talk to.
Oh, yeah.
Different backgrounds, different religious affiliations, different communication styles. I mean, all different sorts of walks of life. And like you said, every different way that somebody can slam a door, they figure it out, right?
I often say if I had done door to door and business to business first, I would have been an unstoppable salesperson in any role, because to your point, the amount of different people you meet in the span of an hour or 2 hours, and the ability to pick up really quickly, I'm talking in 10 seconds, to get them to disarm is a skill that can be used anywhere. Man, I wish I'd done that the other way around, because I would have been a rock star, a monster.
Out of curiosity, have you ever seen the world's greatest salesman? It's Kenny Brooks.
Yes, I have. A long time.
Kid that does the door to door with the spray cleaner.
Right.
For our listening audience, if you have not seen this, just Google search "world's greatest salesman," and his name is Kenny Brooks.
I wonder what he's doing now. He was phenomenal.
It is so entertaining. The kid has line after line after line, and and some of them aren't necessarily PC, but they are so, this kid's so hilarious. I don't know how he's not a billionaire right now.
Right.
But anyway, all right. So then from there, what did you stick around in the advertising world? Did you direct sales? Did you fall back in the autos? What'd you do?
Yeah, so that took me, I was in Kentucky for 2 years. Then I went and ended up back closer to home in New York. I was in there for a couple months, still doing the same thing with the same team. And this is not the glamorous part of the story. The business failed. It just didn't work. And I was really struggling and going through the toughest time of my life and really up against the wall and looking for something to eat sometimes, and definitely looking for some place to sleep. And for me, it was getting back to my roots and understanding that I needed to get back to what I was really put here to do and what I was really meant to do. And part of that was moving back home to Florida and getting kind of resettled and getting my legs behind me and get some weight under me. And part of that was, okay, what's the thing that I know? I know auto. Now I know this new training and developing side of what I do, but I know auto. So for me, coming back and joining an auto franchise was about how can I help the next generation of salespeople be great, because I've picked up that skill and I know how to do that. So it was moving back to Florida, getting situated again and getting kind of my feet wet into an industry that I felt really comfortable with, really familiar with. I knew it wasn't the final destination, but it was where I needed to go next, if that makes sense.
It does. And did you say that you were doing door to door in Kentucky?
Yes, sir. I did it. Orlando, Kentucky, and New York.
I can tell you why that failed, man. There's banjos in Kentucky, dude. How do you go door to door in Kentucky, man?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the oddest thing. The success was through the roof in Kentucky. It's New York that actually kicked us in the butt, because once you learn to pivot, so Kentucky is very much slow down your pace, get to know people a little bit, and you're good. I learned how to do that. But going to New York, even though I'm from New York, I forget it's the opposite. It's fast, fast, fast. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So the struggle was changing the pace and changing the cadence and getting to a more direct style of sales. That's what didn't work. Other things, factored in as well. But that was the biggest shift. Kentucky, I could go do that any day of the week.
All right. So how about this? Give your first car job at CarMax a grade of A through F from what you experienced at Evolution later on down the road. Once you had that on that skill set under your belt, what would you give yourself that on that first auto job attempt?
Oh man, that's a really great question. I would say a solid C plus, maybe B minus. There was a lot of growth that I needed to do. I didn't understand who I was as a salesperson. I'm really good at following notes. So I would follow around the best salespeople and say, oh, that's really good. I'm going to do that. And I was really good at that always. But man, I didn't have a ton of confidence. I didn't have the stick-ativity. I didn't have a lot of the real insane drive that it takes. I would consistently be in the top 5, once I got my feet under me and started getting a little bit more comfortable. But man, that one spot was always very elusive. But by the time joining Evolution many years later, even though I wasn't on the sales floor, I was coaching and training and developing. I could sell anything at that point. After going door to door, selling a car is easy. And I remember I had a salesperson that was very stubborn, and he challenged me on everything that I coached. And I said, you know what? I almost said his name. I won't. But I said, you know what? I will take the next customer that comes in the door. Your next customer, I will take, and I will be the new guy. And you're my manager that's training me, and let's just see how I do. Mind you, Kevin, I did it, and I was like, oh God, what did I just do? I haven't sold a car in like 5 years. That was the stupidest thing. And man, like riding a bike, it came back and I rocked the hell out of that sales conversation, sold them the car on my first up in 5 years, and pure luck, pure, confidence, pure, I got to make this work. And man, that kid was on my hip the rest of my time there. He trusted everything I said. He believed everything I said. He didn't ask any more questions because I was able to get up there and show it, just like we talked about, just like we practice.
I had the exact same thing happen when I was at a Harley dealership.
I love that.
I offered to, hey, you know what? You're new. Let's trade roles. I want you to just take notes. I'm just going to take the next person who walks in the door. They happen to come in and they have a bike called a CVO. It's a series. It's like the luxury version of a base model. So it's all the chrome, all the power, all the everything, all the finishes, the sound system. I mean, it can be $40,000 motorcycles. They're up there. And the guy literally walked in and he basically said, yeah, this is the bike I want. I'll take it. And I'm like, boom, see, that's all you got to do. And I was like, man, he didn't learn a thing from that other than I just by luck of the draw, just got this fat commission that he should have gotten. All right. So
hilarious.
Walk us through how you found your way to the home building industry. Were you headhunted? Did you just go, I need to get into some of this? What?
My whole career, and I'll be really transparent, I didn't have a ton of information on home building, but I knew real estate was kind of the next step after auto. No offense to my auto folks out there, but that was kind of the thought process was you go auto, you go real estate. I didn't really know new home sales was a thing until I found it by accident. But for me, it was about at Evolution. I was already in the process of getting my real estate license. You need to be licensed here in Florida. So I was in the process of getting my license and figuring out what that was. Again, I knew that that was a stepping stone and I wanted to move into most likely real estate. So as I was getting my license, I met someone by chance and I said, hey, I don't really know how to get started in real estate. And they explained to me what new home sales is. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a gig. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought everything was general real estate. And she said, go around, find a community that you like, and just once you find a community that you like and you think looks really nice, go in and ask for a job. So I'm stupid enough to do that. And I went into an Ashton Woods community and said, hey, can I have a job? and it just so happened that the sales manager was there that day. And, I'm just a combination of stupidity and dumb luck. And the sales manager was there and was like, you don't know anything and I don't know you, but you're pretty bold. So let's give it a shot. And that's how I ended up in new home sales. That's how I started with Ashton Woods. Probably going to upset people that I didn't go through the hard journey to get in. It was just asking the question and taking the shot.
All right. So it's no secret that you have a very polished look. I don't think I've ever seen you anything other than a sport coat, a matching suit, something really fine looking. Did you have that same look back then, or is that something you've developed over your life?
Yeah, it's funny, and this is probably a rare time. I do less ties these days, but yeah, it's always a jacket. I'll say one thing: my grandmother, who's no longer with us, my grandmother always used to hammer in our head, mine and my two older brothers, that she said you're allowed to overdress. You're not allowed to underdress. And that was something that's always been whispered in my mind. So even back in my days at CarMax, when I was on the lot, and the attire of a car salesman, it's especially at CarMax, it's blue polo and, khaki shorts. It's Best Buy. And I didn't want to look like I worked at Best Buy. So I wore dress pants and a dress shirt. They had, CarMax branded dress shirts. And I always wore the dress shirt and the dress pants and the shoes, even though it's in Florida and it's 100 degrees outside, because I wanted that look. Now, if you look at me back then in 2005, minus a beard, I looked like I was 12 years old. So I had to do something to look a little bit more, a sort of authoritative and more senior. So that really stuck with me. I always wanted to be one that felt important and one that looked the part of the role of what I'm doing. I'm selling you a car, and especially going to new home sales, I'm selling you a house, which is, one of the biggest decisions and purchases you'll make. So I always wanted to look the part. So that's when the suit started, was as soon as I started with Ashton Woods. I did the shirt and ties, but man, that's when the suits started coming out and the bright color shirts and really stretching my fashion a little bit.
I'm going for the eccentric billionaire look, but since I'm not a billionaire and I'm not really eccentric, I'm just a crazy guy that can't match his clothes. It's just the way it is.
I learned in new home sales. I think, probably overthinking it because I'm a 6'1" dark skinned guy with, with a big beard. I'm pretty recognizable, but I always went through the logic of, I can't guarantee that my customer is going to remember me, but if they see a guy that is in a suit with maybe a pink shirt or a chartreuse shirt or a purple tie, they're going to remember that. And I always wanted to be memorable in my presentation and in my look. And that was always my logic. And it's worked out, honestly, and it's stuck with me since then.
All right, so you stayed with Ashton Woods for decades, a couple of years. How long were you with Ashton Woods?
I was with Ashton Woods for about a cup of coffee.
Okay, all right.
About a cup of, no, I was there for about a year. The honest answer, I just wasn't good at the job. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't, I wasn't prepared for the difference. I thought coming in with all this sales experience over the previous, 5 to 10 years, that I was just going to be a rock star. And I just wasn't. I didn't know the intricacies of new home sales, of the real estate industry. I just didn't know. And I wasn't a very good student and I didn't figure it out. And pure luck has always been on my side. I had a really good friend that worked there at Ashton Woods and had left and gone to Taylor Morrison. And he's like, you're a good kid. You don't know some stuff. I was, no offense to them, but I was put in a community by myself 30 minutes away from the rest of the team. So I was literally on an island and I didn't know anything. So, but that's on me to get the information, but I just didn't know anything. So He was really good. He went over to Taylor Morrison, knew the VP, and said, "Hey, give this kid a call. I think he's pretty good." And the VP at the time called me up, and really, we really had a long conversation of what this job really entails, what you need to be successful, what it takes, and it was a rocket ship from that moment. I mean, she brought me over and gave me an opportunity, and I said, "Okay, I got to take this really seriously because you don't get a lot of these opportunities," is what I learned.
So basically, you had the intestinal fortitude, and I'm going to use the F word here.
Yeah.
Basically failed at Ashton Woods, and not by any missteps on your own, other than just maybe not taking the initiative of learning more things and trying to figure it out on yourself. But you were also kind of put in a position to potentially fail anyway. Because when you are put out there in an island by yourself, especially being the new guy, you really weren't given enough. And I'm not trying to slam the
No, never
made at that time by Ashton Woods, but because that does happen. And sometimes they can say, "Oh, this guy's a whippersnapper. He's going to make this happen. Let's put him out there. He's going to turn this community around." You might have been at the Doug community. Who knows?
Well, what's funny is I sold, if I'm being really transparent, and I like to be really observational, really understand who I am. And I sold a story of that I'm going to be the kid that's going to show up and just figure it out, because that's who I'd been in the past. And when I got there, yes, it was a tough situation. I think the community ended up closing down like a month after I left because it just was a dud. I mean, it is what it is. But I didn't do my part to go out there and solve problems and figure out. I kind of just, unfortunately, what a lot of other salespeople do, I just sat there and waited for a miracle to happen, and it just didn't, because that's not how this world works. And that's the piece that I take away, is that I got to take ownership too. While it wasn't a great situation, there are things that I could have done to, maybe it wouldn't have been perfect, but it could have been something salvageable.
So John Daly, the golfer, the self-admitted alcoholic and cigarette chain smoker and barefoot golfer now.
I just saw him in a commercial.
Oh yeah, no, he's been even in movies. He was in the latest Happy Gilmore movie. He has a saying that I like, and it's something along the lines of, "You shouldn't follow your dreams. You should tread your own path."
Ooh,
so following a dream is following somebody else's image for what they think that you should be. And sometimes that is what you might want to do. You might get in a position, go, "Oh, well, this is how other people do it. This is how I should do it," versus "Here's how I'm going to do it."
Right.
So when you were at Taylor Morrison, were you able to just absorb a lot more? You were able to sponge some more information, glean some more things from other people? What really happened there that was transitional for you?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I met my mentor, a friend of ours that we both know, Miss Abby Murata. I met her in my training class, and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's what I want to do." And she was so great. And she said, "Listen, you got to prove that you can do this job first before you start talking about the next job." Right. So that was my sole focus, was to go out and show that I can be a killer salesperson in this industry. And that was my sole mission and focus. And I got with the best people in the division. I asked a ton of questions. I asked personally from the VP, "Don't put me in the slam dunk community," which is opposite from what I would have said, 6 months prior. "Please put me in a slam dunk community." I said, "No, give me more challenges. Put me in the ones that no one can sell, that everyone's struggling with, that don't make sense." Whereas 6 months ago, that's what buried me. This would become my strength. So I want power lines. I want, a dump. I want a water treatment plant. I want, next to school. I want railroad tracks. I want all of the things that salespeople complain about, because I know if I'm going to move into a training role, I want to be able to talk about this stuff like I lived it, not theoretically. I want to be able to say, "No, I sold that. I sold with bullet holes in my fence. I did that. I sold against Section 8 housing. You name it. I've done it." And that was my mission. It was, the same situation, but my approach was very different. And that was the big breakaway from Taylor Morrison for sure.
Love it. So you were there. Where'd you head after Taylor Morrison?
So after Taylor Morrison's, I'll give you the kind of the Cliff's Notes. I'll give you the short version. So I sold for a long time, and then Abby brought me up into training. And that's where I really fell in love and realized this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in training and coaching and facilitating. So when the time was up at Taylor Morrison, sometimes relationships just end, and I still consider that home. I actually just talked to some of the folks from HR that are bringing me in for a conference in the next couple of weeks. So it's still home. And it was one of those, I call it going off to college, and I needed to explore what else I could do in this industry. So leaving there, I went off and I just tried to gather knowledge. I was with a small implementation firm called Apostle Tech that did a Salesforce implementation. So I added that to my repertoire and how I can do that for companies. And I went off and joined K. Hovnanian and took a role as first as a sales trainer, but then eventually the director of sales training, which was so amazing to get to lead the direction of sales training and where we're going and what we were going to do. But it was always in the back of my mind, what pieces of the puzzle can I put together? Because I got to do this on my own. There's too many things I've seen that tell me that I got to go and really shake the tree a little bit and shift the industry, if you will.
So wait a minute. You went Ashton Woods, Taylor Morrison, K. Hovnanian. Did you not work for any Chuck with a truck or Carl and Hammer, Hammer and Fool? You didn't work for any of those hillbilly outfits. So all just these large national, polished companies.
I told you, Kevin, a lot of luck and a lot of, I call it, bad breaks and bad choices, but a lot of luck was sprinkled in there as well that got me into these great seats where I was able to learn from some of the best in the industry for all of my time in home building. That's why I'm able to do what I do and why I'm able to talk to you right now is because of these seats I've been in.
Now, I do know, just because we've been friends for a while, that there was a little parenthesis in your world, and that parenthesis was Sicilian Partners. You weren't there very long. What brought you there? Why'd you go there, and why were you there for such a short period of time?
I shouldn't have used the cup of tea joke earlier because this was really a cup of tea. That was a partnership. So I was really in the beginning stages of my new company, the Superhero Mindset. They were happening kind of at the same time. It was a strategic partnership. We knew it wasn't going to be long term, but the idea was to help grow what they do and help kind of use I don't want to sound like that guy, but use my voice and my brand in the industry to help kind of grow what they do and also to elevate me as well. It was a partnership. It wasn't a total alignment, and I think we both understood that, but it was what we set out to do, really. It was to really get some more eyes on what they do and get me kind of more ingrained to another side of the business. So it was a short partnership, but also a really good partnership, and I love those guys, and they're doing great things right now.
All right. So in addition to that little blip, you also have been a speaker. You spoke at NHB, you spoke at PCBC. I mean, you spoke all over the country. And this is something that's very, very something to be proud of, which is TED Talk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of people that you're in a very small elite group of people that have been in TED Talk. So walk us through just really quick. What's it like standing up in front of a room full of people, a room full of peers, subordinates, people that you've admired, that you have to go up there with the A game. So what is that like?
Well, I'll give Taylor Morrison the credit. They are the first place, and it was in my division, the first place to give me a microphone and say, hey, talk in front of the group. And I'm super nervous. I'm the new kid, and I'm here with all these veterans that have been selling for 10, 15, 20 years in home building and doing an amazing job. And here's my job to go talk to them and tell them something new. So I appreciate them giving me the microphone. But man, I've been speaking since then, since that moment. I've been on stages. I've been in front of rooms. I've been talking to people. It was always a thing that I wanted to run towards. It made me nervous. It made my stomach turn. I go back and talk about failing speech class in college 3 times. That feeling never went away. But man, I learned to harness the power because number one, it would fuel me to try to make sure that it is a good speech so I don't look like an idiot, because then that feeling is validated, right? So I try to make a really good one. And also the high, for lack of a better term, the high that I would get after a good speech or a good talk, oh man, it was worth all the stress. So to answer a lot of people's questions, if you see me before a big talk about to hurl, I am about to hurl. It hasn't gone away. I still feel the same way. I've just learned to muscle through it and do it anyways. So yeah, speaking's been something that was, if you talk to 10-year-old Cory, 15-year-old Cory, 20-year-old Cory, they would laugh in your face. And now it's an essential part of my business. It's everything that I do now. Life's crazy that way.
All right. So it's no secret, if you're in the home building industry and you are worth your weight, even in half of your weight in spit, you can make pretty good money. So why would you leave making pretty good money to go off and start your own company where you are in the driver's seat of making sure that you actually get paid? You've taken on 100% of the risk. What made you decide to just grab your bootstraps? Let's use whatever kind of industry terms are out there right now. But what made you decide to take that step? I mean, and just to jump in with both feet?
Well, I'll tell you, part of it is being a little crazy. So I grew up, I don't want to say poor, but I grew up with not a lot. And then in my early 20s, late teens at CarMax, I made way too much money for a 20-year-old should make. So I've been poor and I've been rich. I've been poor again. And then I've been doing okay. So I've lived in all different arenas and none of them scare me. So I used to get that feedback a lot, Kevin, is, hey, why are you going to leave a sales job that you're really good at to go do even going into training felt like a big step back for a lot of people. But for me, it was about purpose and it was about living in the space that I'm supposed to be in, because I can be a great salesperson. I could go sell a home this weekend if I really wanted to, but would the fulfillment be there? Would I be excited about doing that as I am excited about helping the next generation of salespeople? I struggled my first year because I didn't have someone to go to or didn't have the framework to help me be the best me in a sales role. I get excited about being that person for new salespeople, even veteran salespeople. But I get really excited about that ability to help people change their lives. You and I both know if you're good in this gig, it will change your life. It will change your entire family's trajectory if you're really good at this job. A lot of people just don't always have the tools to be really good at this job. So consider me, for lack of a better term, the tool to help them be great at this job.
Let's talk about inspiration. What has been your biggest target? And that target could be if you're in a running race and this fat person runs by you and you're like, I cannot let this person beat me. Okay, so what is your biggest target? Who is your biggest collaborator that you've had in the entire industry, whether they're in the home building industry or not? And who was your biggest inspiration along the way?
Oh man, fantastic questions. My target's being better than I was yesterday. And I know that's not always the answer, but for me, I got to chase myself. I got to chase myself. And if I'm, my wife used to make fun of me because I would get a promotion or I'd get a raise, and then I'd immediately the next day start talking about my next promotion. And she's like, "Can you let it settle for a second?" But my focus is always, how do I get better? How do I improve? So that's my target. Inspiration, man, that's gotta be my parents. Seeing them move here, I didn't see it, I wasn't born yet, but my parents moved to America from Trinidad. They had no money, they had no education, they were just trying to figure out things. And whether my mom worked 3 jobs, my dad went to school, and then my dad went to school, my mom worked 3 jobs, and seeing them go back and forth to give us a life, that inspires me. I always say that I represent way more than just me. So when times are tough, I know they're never that tough, and I need to just quit being a baby and go to work. And what was the second one?
Collaborator. Who's
collaborator?
Your collaborator?
Oh man, it's we've mentioned before. I'm lucky. I have a great circle of friends. You're one of those as well. But Abby has been the one that's been in my corner from day one. Even when I was an idiot and didn't know what I was doing, she still gave me an opportunity to go out and shine and be as crazy as I wanted to be. And I can still lean on her, even though I haven't worked for her in about 7 years. I still call her boss, and I still can lean on her and get some ideas. And she hates when I call her boss, but I can't help it because that's who she is to me.
All right, next to last one. And you've already pretty much alluded to it, that you always are looking for that next thing that makes you better, that can elevate you. But what does drive you? What is it that gets you out of, because everybody has those days where they just lay in bed and they're like, I don't even want to get up today. What is your motivating factor to just get up and put this ridiculously delicious clothes on and then head out the door? What is that motivator for you?
I have 3 boys in this house. I come from 3, and I have 3 boys in this house: Jordan, Jackson, and Jaden. And they're everything. They are the reason why I get up and go to work. And Jordan has autism and he has challenges in life, and I know that it is on me to make sure that I can make his life as minimally complicated as possible. And then my middle boy Jackson is just a clone of me. He has got the ADHD. He's got the all the things that I have. So it's my ability to show him that number one, that ADHD is a superpower if you use it well, and you just got to sometimes go out and do work and be every bit that you're destined to be, but you got to be willing to put in the work. Jaden's only 2, so I don't know how he's turning out yet, but that smile gets me going in the morning. So
maybe he's like me. Does he have sideburns already or no?
He's a hairy child, so he may he may even be getting there soon.
Okay, so being that you're a father of 3, and I've got 2 kids myself, so I can follow along on this one, and I'll try to do this without getting emotional, because sometimes I get emotional when I talk about kids. But, and I'm not talking about after you're dead. I'm not talking about that legacy. What legacy do you want to leave your children? in your walk of life?
Man, so I'm one of the weird dads that has these conversations with his kids, and I talk to them, and I'm honest with them. I tell, especially my middle son, he's so much like me, and I tell him, hey, listen, I'm unfortunately not going to be here forever, and I don't know when that time is, and I'm really transparent with him. But I said, my job while I'm here is to make sure that you have the tools to be the best version of you. You don't have to be me. You don't have to be any Joe Schmo. You just have to be the best you, and I got to feel comfortable when I'm gone that you're going to be able to stand up on your 2 feet and go make something beautiful out of this life. So I'm really open with them. To me, that's my legacy, is that they saw dad go out and do scary things, take risks, take chances, because he believed in himself and he was willing to put in the work and do the things that other people weren't willing to do to make sure that we had a good life. And I hope and I pray, and I think I'm going to give them the tools to do that. I hope that they surpass this life tenfold, and they do something bigger and better than I could even imagine, because that's kind of my job, is to set them up for as much. I don't want to give them anything because I didn't get nothing, but I want them to have the ability to go get and never be in trouble.
Superhero mindset. The stereotypical question would be, who's your favorite superhero? But I'm not going to ask you that.
You know that answer.
One is because it's too hard, because every superhero has their own facet that makes them great at what they are. Who's your favorite villain?
Oh, that now we're talking. I'm going to say, and this will give away my favorite hero, but you already know this. My favorite villain is Lex Luthor. And not because he's a nice person, because he's such a fleshed out and complex character. You may not agree with him, but you understand his motivations. I understand why he sees the world that he does, the way that he does. He's way wrong on it, but I get it. And I love villains that are beyond the simple, I just want to rule the world. I love, villains with layers, because we are humans with layers. And especially if you see my background, if you hear the things that I talk about, I often talk about those heroes that are in that gray area, those anti-heroes, because I think that's a little bit closer to reality of who we all are. We're not all big blue. We're not all Superman that does everything perfect. And we're just these big blue Boy Scouts. A lot of us are in the gray a little bit. So I love those characters that get to explore all aspects of humanity.
I have always liked the anti-heroes, the villains, if you will,
right,
that have internal struggle, that have to make bad decisions based off of things that they've experienced.
Right.
For me, it's Thanos. Nobody wants to get rid of people, but Thanos had to literally make decisions based off of his own planet. He started with his own, there you go, Thanos. His own planet was literally dying because they didn't have food to feed people. So he had to make his own rough decision. This tugs at your heartstrings to wipe out half the population just to let it start over again.
Right.
And that's the whole story behind the gauntlet and the stones and needing to hit the reset button, because he had to be that person. He doesn't want to wear that badge, but he has to.
Well, you see in the movies, he never takes pleasure in what he's doing.
No, he doesn't.
It's a thing that he has to do in his mind, right? I think Thanos is the greatest modern interpretation of air quotes villain that we've seen in ages, because of all the things that you said. It's never something that he takes pride in. It's something that he feels that he has to do. He's wrong, but I just love the complexity of that character, and you can see the struggle in what he has to do. That's why he gets to be on one of the big shelves, because that's a character and a half right there.
That's absolutely. Before we say goodbye and thank you for your time, Cory, let me ask you to give just getting done folding papers, Cory, some life advice. Go back in the time machine and give that young Cory, because you can't make another Cory. You're the only Cory there is. But what advice would you give to that up and coming person that's just getting started, that fledgling salesperson that feels like they failed at their first job, their first attempt at it, that person that maybe didn't feel like they were in the right mix, that person that possibly is starving, that literally didn't make it and doesn't know where they're desperate. They don't know what that next step is going to be. What advice would you give that, Cory?
Life is going to whoop your ass. It's going to kick you in the teeth. It's going to throw you down on the ground, and it's going to beat you up. But all those things were never going to be fatal. You just have to find the strength and the energy to get back up and try again. All those things that are, listed as failures, and failure is the hardest thing that we can go through. all those things that are failures are lessons, and you will learn from every one of them, even the ones that are very painful and the ones that sting, the ones that still wake you up at night. There are lessons in those, but the only magic happens when you take those lessons and do something with it. It's easy to say that you learn a lesson from a failure, but if you don't do something with the lesson, then it's still for nothing. So take those failures, find the sunshine in that storm, and use it for your next move, because that's what young Cory didn't realize, that those stumbles were the exact things, exact stepping stones that he needed for the next move. And all of those next moves, while feeling disconnected at the time, led to where we are today.
Boom. I love it. So, Cory, as a friend, as somebody that admires what you do, the show that you put on, the Cory Show, and just the genuine human that you are, thank you for your time today. So, Cory, I love you. Thank you for being on this. Thank you for being a mover and a shaker. And thank you for sharing with us today.
My brother, I appreciate you. I love you. I appreciate you again, double time, for having me on. Listen, I will always be a mover and a shaker. I can't help it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for everybody for joining us today. I'm Kevin Weitzel with Outhouse.